And welcome back to Just the Truth. And we are here at Turning Point USA's Young Women's Leadership Summit. It has been an amazing evening here, speaking to young women who are just so amazing, and they are wanting to influence the culture for family, faith, and freedom. And I have someone right now who is doing just that, Christianné Allen, who is a Turning Point USA ambassador, and also someone I've gotten to know really well over the last couple of years, who is grounded in her faith, grounded in what she believes in. And she's written a really amazing piece, Christianné, that is talking about religious liberty globally and why that should concern Americans today.
Absolutely, and it's interesting because, first, thank you so much for having me on the show. I have thoroughly enjoyed following your work since we met at the launch of Falkirk at Liberty University in 2019, and we have worked since then on a couple of other projects, but
just a couple.
Yeah, but it's been an honor to follow your work, and congratulations on the show.
Thank you. Well, it's such an honor to have you on, and I have loved following your work as well, and you are a rising voice in conservatism, so I'm grateful to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. And it's interesting, you talked about the op-ed. I'm not an expert on this topic, but as any American can, I can look at the reports that are coming in, and it's alarming. We've had a lot of warning bells signaled when you look at some of these reports coming out. I was joking with them. I was like, I think I'm the first one to bring notes to one of these, but I wanted to make sure I got the facts right. But today, 340 million Christians face life-threatening persecution for their faith. And in 2019, BBC News reported Christian persecution is at near genocide levels. But the reason I decided to write this piece is I was actually reading an issue from Voice of the Martyrs. And it was about a story of a North Korean man. And he was on a business trip to China. And while he was in China, he was approached by a member of one of the churches there. And they asked him if he would be willing to accept a shipment of hidden Bibles upon his return to North Korea. And Min Jae, which was his name, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, very much reluctant to say yes due to the high risk of being imprisoned, tortured, or sent to one of North Korea's concentration camps. But as he did commit his life to Christ, he saw it as the Lord's work, and he decided to say yes and to accept this shipment of hidden Bibles. And he was imprisoned and totally unsure of his fate, had no idea if he was going to be released. And while he was in his cell, he learned about other people who were imprisoned for the same reason, because of their faith. And he also heard, it's amazing how God works. He heard about other individuals who now were in concentration camps who received one of the Bibles from this hidden shipment that he had gotten, and who now were unsure of their faith. So really, like stories like Min Jae's, the Bible smuggler, it should compel Americans to double down in defense of the First Amendment and our precious religious liberties, which much of the rest of the world does not enjoy. And that is one of the cornerstones of our American heritage, and I think it's worth defending and being aware if it's ever being infringed on, which, as you said, we're now seeing that that's happening globally and now in the United States of America.
Yes, and so beautifully expressed, Christianné, because I think a lot of Americans, especially of your age and the young women here, have grown up in a society that has largely allowed them to speak their voice and to have opinions on basically anything. But now that we're seeing the cancel culture movement, we're seeing some of these attacks from the left in the midst of the COVID shutdowns against churches specifically, we're having to recognize, well, wait a second, it's just one political act away from being taken away, and we have to make sure that we are standing on the front lines. And what would we do if that was us, right? If that was us saying, like Min Jae, that someone said, well, are you willing to risk imprisonment to do the right thing for your faith? How would we respond today?
Absolutely, and honestly, like if we're naive as Americans, if we are naively turning our cheek, or ignorantly, I should say, turning our cheek from the rising levels of religious persecution and hostility around the globe due to the naive belief that persecution could never reach us, then we need to think again, because hostility turns into violence, and violence eventually turns into persecution. And so actually the Heritage Foundation put it beautifully. They said that any government willing to infringe on the right of consciousness will not hesitate to infringe on your other rights. And I think, yeah,
Very
like I
true.
said, this is something that we need to be aware of. And if there ever is an infringement, then we need to, as a community, not look to the government to solve this. Because as I was writing this piece, I'm like, where do I conclude? Like, how do we stop this? How do we fix this? I think it's a matter of education. It's not something that we should look to the government to fix. This is the American people assuming self-responsibility for our communities and realizing that this is something that, one, we need to be aware of, and then crack down as a community if we ever need to.
Yeah,
So-
and this is exactly what Turning Point USA is doing
Yes.
by raising up voices
Absolutely.
like yourself that are willing to speak to these issues
Yeah.
and willing to encourage others to say, hey, we need to champion this. We have to take ownership of
Yes.
our responsibility
Yes.
as good citizens in
Yes.
America. And so for the young ladies who are looking at you and thinking, wow, she's such a bold advocate, how can I be more like Christianné? What was your story in getting involved in Turning Point USA, being an ambassador, and being a voice for liberty and freedom?
Well, I'm just like them. I'm very much so put on my pants the same way everyone else does. And yeah, but as far as like how I got involved with Turning Point, it was in 2019 they started to expand and go into an influencer program and contacting these people who are being outspoken on their social media platforms, large and small. You don't have to have millions of followers to be outspoken. And actually, a couple of the ladies here, like one of the questions is like, how do you start? Well, you start. Like really, I mean, I think about like how I ended up working for Rudy Giuliani, and it really was just starting. I didn't come from a position or a family of politicians, or I did not have connections. I just started, and honestly, by God, like I ended up meeting the mayor and I got that position. But it really is just starting. So like for those young women though, getting more involved in like Turning Point. Turning Point is looking for proactive young individuals who are looking to make a difference in their communities. And again, self-responsibility. Turning Point's based out of Arizona, right? But I mean, you talk about all the states. We need student activists, and yeah. So.
Yeah, we need young women, men and women across the country
Absolutely.
who are willing to stand up and say, even in my sphere of influence, you never know who is listening, and you never know
Yes.
the proximity to another influencer, like you mentioned, you know, working for Mayor Giuliani. And so just in the last minute we have here, Christianné,
Yes.
what do you think is the most important issue facing young people today?
I think it's such an important question, and I know you've asked some of the ladies and men here that question as well. And it's not about women to me, it's about men and women. It's about our younger generations, and it's making sure that they're educated. I think we have such a need for foundational education when it comes to our beliefs. And in apologetics, I went to a Christian university, Liberty University, online for high school and college, and they teach you in apologetics, know what you believe and why you believe it. And Turning Point is doing just that. They're trying to educate people and equip them with the knowledge and tools that they need. So education.
Yeah, absolutely, and continue
Yeah.
to speak the truth. So thank you so
Absolutely.
much, Christianné, for
Thank
being
you.
here.
This was so wonderful.
And this has been an amazing, amazing time here at Turning Point USA. Stick with us at Real America's Voice throughout the weekend. See you on Monday.